All right, hello guys. We're going to get ready to start our session today. This is session number 4. We're going to be talking about forms. I had quite a few people sign up for this one, so I hope this information is very valuable to you. It's going to be a pretty jam-packed session, so I strongly recommend you do review these. Before we begin, just kind of our housekeeping. They are recorded and they're available to view afterwards. You just go to YouTube and search for Kate Hyland. You'll actually find my channel and all these videos are there. This will be one you'll want to view and review if you have any questions about forms, because there's going to be a lot of information today. You can enter questions over to the right, and I'll answer them as I go. So if you kind of see just over to the right from my mouse cursor, you should see a section for questions. If you don't see it, up kind of at the top, there's a grid. It kind of looks like the 9 grid that you always see when you go into different Google apps, and click on that, and then there should be questions there. So you can always enter questions as you go. If you are watching through YouTube, which is the best way to watch from a mobile device, you will not have access to the Q&A, but you can always email me and I'll respond after the session. There's also a slight delay in the video, so I may be talking about something and you put a question in right away, but I may not actually see that until about 10-15 seconds later. So just kind of keep that in mind, as there's just a little bit of a delay in the video from when I actually present and what you actually see. At the end, I will be sharing a link to the follow-up survey. You do need to fill this out for PDC. If you do not want the points, please fill it out anyway, because that helps give me feedback on the sessions to know what information was valuable to you and how the sessions were going. So even if you don't want any points for that, if you can just mark it down in the comments, no points, whatever, but please fill that out, because I still really do appreciate that feedback. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We are talking about Google Drive and the forms in particular about Google Drive. I really have enjoyed the Google Forms session. If you've ever done Google Forms before, if you've done forms in like SurveyMonkey, or if you've done quizzing and things like that, that all kind of comes into play, and you find the tool that works for you. I've just really enjoyed Google because I feel like it's kind of works in with my Drive. I can put in things that are directly to my Drive, and I like the responses. Everything has its unique features, but Forms is really handy that you're going to use. So first off, we'll go through creating a form here in a little bit, but I kind of want to jump in and tell you the difference between this. Oops, I was going to jump back to the questions. There is actually a new forms and an old forms. They just switched over to the new forms right about January, because I think it happened right before somebody was getting ready to do a form session. That kind of threw them for a loop. So there is old and new. You can go back to the old form. I used to do more in the old forms, but they've kind of caught up on some things, and I'm liking the new forms a little bit more. So I'm going to actually do this session over the new forms, not the old form, because eventually if they get rid of that old form, I don't want this to become an outdated video. Not that I know when that's going to happen or anything like that. I just want you guys to be aware. If for some reason you do want to go to the old forms, it's down here. It'll jump you into the new forms. You actually see 2 things. Click that little question mark and then go back to the old forms, and you'll see the old form load like this. And so depending on what forms you've ever opened up when you get into Drive, you may see the old form come up with the option to go to the new forms, or you may automatically see the new forms. I'm not exactly sure. It usually loads the last type of form that you created. So if you've ever been in the forms, it's going to give you some different result. So what's the difference between the old and the new? It's getting less and less. I noticed between them, they obviously have a different look. So this is an old form, as you see as I go down. These are all fake questions. The settings are right in here. Kind of reminds me a little bit more of like your word processing document with your file, edit, view, so on and so forth. The old forms is a little bit cleaner, I guess you could say, of a look. And as you scroll down, now this one's divided into sections, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But you can see it looks a little bit larger, has a little bit different of a layout. So it's just in the end what you're most comfortable doing. Just work and see which one you like a little bit better. I haven't been too terribly upset with the new forms. Just kind of taking some getting used to. The one biggest difference, or 2 of the big differences that I noticed between the old and the new, the old forms give you more control over theme customization and font styles. So I can actually change my theme and customize that theme. So I was messing around with this earlier, but I can customize the theme. So I can change my header, I can change my text, and change the style, the color, all of that. So it gives you a little bit more theme to mess with. Back out for this. And then the other thing I noticed is the old form, it has a wider format, which is something I've turned in and seen other people comment on. And what I mean by a wider layout format, so here I created this form and it's a 12 days, and then I did a scale, or actually this is a grid question, and it had to have the old form so you could see it all. If I actually view live form, so you can see how this looks, so I can see all my options. In the new form, I jump over and view. So just kind of keep this in mind. You'll see right here is it cuts off that question. So before, in the old form, it had all of them and it has that wider range and margin, but in the new one it seemed to cut that off. So kind of be aware of that if you're going to use anything with the grid or the scale, is you might see it kind of cut things off. And on this particular one, I really didn't want this one to get cut off, so that was a problem to me. And I just switched back to the old form. I actually think I created this in the new form, switched back to the old form, and then sent it out so that people were getting it in the old form, not the new form. So I know that's kind of confusing, but just things to be aware of on that particular item. All right, so I'm going to jump out of here. So first off, we're just going to go through and we're going to kind of create a form. That's the best way for me to kind of tell you about it. I will jump back to this one later because this one has some responses in it that I want to be able to share with you so we can talk about the responses. All right, so here in Drive. To get into it, you need to go to Drive. Then there is a Forms window, but I just always do it from Drive, so I know exactly where I'm creating it. And I go to New, More, and Google Forms. Open that. And so it opened up in the new form. If you are not in the new form, you should have a purple band right at the top, and it'll say Go to New Google Forms. Click on that. That'll match this video. Yes, you can create new old forms, but that's going to match everything in this video, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. All right, so you just title it like you would before. This is going to be your title. We always say things title delete. And then if I'm going to jump that up here, it's actually going to put the title up there. And then I just start adding my question. You usually have descriptions that if you want to give a little bit additional information, you can. And then you can have your questions. To add each question, before I go into that, let me just tell you one thing. You can have collaborators. So I go into Send, and I scroll all the way to the bottom and I say Add Collaborators. The same screen will come up like you see in a normal shared document. The only disadvantage to forms, or the difference, I guess you could say, for collaborators, is it's not live. We can't see the same questions at the same time. I have to submit a question or finish a question, and then another person can see that question. So if you guys are working with somebody and you're talking through a question or the wording with somebody, I strongly recommend you open a Google Doc and you work on your questions there, and then you just copy and paste that over into the form itself later. So it does have collaboration, so we can work on things, but it doesn't really allow for that live collaboration that Google is common for or known for. So do a Google Doc. But if you just want to have two people be able to edit and work on a question, like two social studies teachers want to work together on something, you can both work on it. You just won't see the same live questions at the exact same time. All right, so just kind of, it'll give you the most up-to-date version. All right, so I can add editors just as I do normally. Editors are able to see the form, edit the form, as well as see all responses after that. So if you're actually just a form viewer or participant for the form, you don't see all the responses unless the editor chooses to let you see that. All right, so you can add collaborators. First off, just to start creating, you hit the plus sign every time you want to create a question. So if I just click on that, you see a question come up right down here at the bottom. So if I say this is question 1, I know my typing is going to be bad. I can give my options, and you see I'm just going to tab down the line and just put in these different responses so you can see what you can do. I can add an other, which an other option will, they click on it and then they can type in their response. So if they had some other response that they were going to put into it. If I want to, I can change this to checkboxes. What I really do like about the form is you're going to have multiple choice. Checkbox and Dropbox are very similar in their layout. So I originally created this as a multiple choice, but I had my answers in. I didn't want to retype these answers. Yeah. So all I have to do is go to checkbox, and it's still there. The difference between a multiple choice and a checkbox is checkboxes are going to allow you to select more than one. Multiple choice only lets you select one. And then the last one is drop down. So drop down, the reason you would use it, it's again only lets you choose one, but if you want to drop down is if there's a lot of text here or you really want to kind of scrunch those questions together, drop downs are better for that. But I won't show it until I actually go into it. I can also move things around. Anytime you see these dots, these 6 dots, that means if I hover over it, I can reorder those responses. Also means I can reorder my questions. So I'm going to actually change this one to a short answer. So you can have a short answer, and I'm going to drag it up. So I want that to be question 1. So you have short answer and paragraph. They're going to be very similar. Obviously, short answer is going to be more of a short one. This is going to be your names, your emails. If you wanted somebody to put in a phone number, it's going to be real short. It's a one-liner. Paragraph is going to be your essay, your text. I'm sure there is a character limit, and I know I've seen it, but I cannot tell you how many characters you can put in it. However, I filled out a lot of forms with the paragraph, and I've typed a lot of information, and I haven't met that limit on like a normal question. So something to kind of keep in mind is there may be a character limit for the paragraph, but I'm not sure what it is. On a majority of the questions, or pretty much all of them, you will see a required or not little slider. If I click on it, that makes it required, meaning the user cannot submit this, or the participant cannot submit this form without answering this question. So I do this in particular if I want students to put in their name, they have to have their name on this quiz. There's other ways to collect that, but if there was something in particular I wanted them to collect, maybe they had to write in the class, I make it required because they cannot submit it without it. They have to fill that in. You can duplicate and you can delete. Over here where you see the 3 dots, that means more. There's more information. So this one, all it's going to have is a description and data validation. Now, the description is just going to add another line for you to add more information beyond just the question itself. Maybe if you were asking a question but you had a particular text you wanted to read, you could add that there. You could also do the data validation, which it has certain specifications that you can set up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in that, but that's something that I recommend that if you really do want to get into quizzing or more forms, you look at that. Data validation is going to mean it has to meet certain criteria or be able to do certain things. Like I can set this maximum. Maybe I do want to put that maximum on. Maybe there isn't, I'm not sure. And I can say they only are allowed to have a 100-character limit. I filled out forms like that before where they only let you put in so much. We have 140 characters in a tweet, so you could set it however you want. And there's a lot of things with those data validations, and each different question has different data validations. So just look through those. I'm not going to tell you about them. All right, so maybe overall I didn't like this question. I'm going to delete it, and it just pops out of the way and you don't see it anymore. You have the option just to add title and description. So this is just text on titles. If you had come into a new section and you wanted to tell them what the section was about, you can put another title in it. You can add pictures and your images, just like adding it something in Google Docs. You can upload it. You can add it by URL. You can go from your Google Drive. Gives you a lot of different options to add those images. You can actually do a search directly in here if you want to. Close that out. And then you can add a video. Now, just as a pre-warning, this is only allowing you to add YouTube videos. In the 480 district, YouTube is blocked for students, so don't plan on putting a video here for your students, having them watch it, because it will be restricted. You won't be able to access it. There's some other things that you can do if you were going to have them add a video or watch a video, and you can always contact me about it later. But just know that the YouTube option or the video options in forms is not a great thing for us right now, just because it goes through YouTube. Cancel that. All right, and then the last item here is add a section. Now, I pulled up this example. Sections are breaking up your form into different pages. Now, this one has, you can see, 1 of 4 sections. And so here's one section. This is the second, third, and the fourth. Now, why would you make sections? I have 2 reasons. One, if your quiz or test starts to get really, really long, it's kind of nice to break it up, because if people feel like they're scrolling forever and forever and forever, it seems to drag on. So if you have that broken up just a little bit, or you definitely want to put a section 1 is multiple choice, section 2 is essay, just kind of like you break up a regular quiz, it's kind of nice to have those sections. The other reason that I do sections is if I have questions that based on the response that go to different sections. Now that's getting really advanced, so I'm not going to go into a lot, but just know that those details, that's kind of there, it's kind of handy. So in this particular question, I said, did you take part in the pilot? You did a BYOD pilot. And if they went to yes, they would continue on to section 3 that I had questions that pertained to taking part in the pilot. If they said no, it took them to a question that had to deal with not taking part in it. They got 2 different questions. So I didn't have to say, don't answer this question if you didn't do it, and then I would get false data. I wanted them to only see a section that they were able to, that they had taken part of, that mattered to them. So you can do that. That's another reason why you break it up. I actually went to my conference this summer, and it was really awesome to see if somebody did and taught us how to do choose your own adventure using Google Forms and this going to a section based on your decision. So if you were interested in that, so if you're in elementary, I just thought it was great. Actually, you do it in high school too. But you would have kids write their story, and they would choose different outcomes and what could happen to it and make it in a Google form, and people go on their own adventure. So something really cool to think about. But those are the 2 reasons why I would create sections. It just kind of gives you your reasons behind that. Next, we did talk about the types. Let me get into those. Oops, I had another question. There we go. So I talked about these main, and you're probably going to use a lot of these here at the top more than anything right now. It is the top types of questions. But you can do a linear scale, which is, I actually have that in my feedback surveys if you've ever done any of those. So, how do you feel about this content? 1, for you don't get it at all. 5 is you got it, you can teach it. Grid, it's going to be all kind of on the same scale, but it's going to give you multiple responses as I agree, I kind of agree, I don't agree, or I can totally disagree. Kind of gives you, and then you go through different topics. I agree with this, but I don't agree with that. You can put in a date and time, meaning it's going to allow them to input the date or a time. So maybe you want to send out a Google form getting ready for conferences, which I got a cool calendar item for conferences as well. But maybe you want to set something up during your open house that they could go in and schedule a date and time that would be great for them to come in. This is where you would add that. You can put that date in there for them. And it just gives them the calendar, which I always love to see because I can never remember. And it won't let me see it here until I go to view, which I'll jump over in a second. But it gives you the calendar pop up so that they have a calendar to go by, because I never remember what date falls on what day. All right. And the time's going to be kind of similar too. I'm going to jump over here to the preview or the eye so you can see what that calendar item looks like. So right here, I just click on it, and there pops out that calendar. So that comes in really, really handy. And I could put the time in here as well, so I could do a time and a date. They could select both of them if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to close this. So that was just the preview. So those are all the types of questions. Now let's get into the responses, because that's the other half of the quiz, is how are you going to get this information out of the quiz or out of the form or whatever you need. I'm going to jump over to my test. So this is just a totally fake question and quiz and form, and I ask people to respond to it for me every once in a while. But you can go to, in the new one, it's under this little gear. And if I click on that, I can decide how and who I want to take certain things. Do I want to restrict it to anybody, only the people here in USD 480? Do I want to collect email addresses? Do I want to limit it to 1 response? Do I want to allow the response receipt? So if somebody wants to get what they put in for their form, this is where you would allow them to either always send it or they can request it if they want to. For my form, I believe I have this, the follow-up survey, I have this checked right now, so you can ask for a receipt or ask for your response if you wish to have it. And it just sends it to you in email pretty quick. If you, and you'll notice here, this was the thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out. Respondents will be required to sign into Google. They do not have to have a 480 account unless you have this first one selected. Then yes, they do have to have a 480 account in order to take the form. But they do have to have a Google account to take this quiz or this form. So this is not a good, none of these are great options if you're sending out the form to parents, because you don't want to require parents to have a Google account. They may have a Hotmail or a Live or a Xbox account. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Google account. So what you would want to do is actually uncheck those, and you'll see that response goes away. If you want to get a parent's email anyway, instead of automatically collecting, so if I say collect, if you automatically collect that, you could just put a question in that says, parent email, and that way they fill in their email. So you can still get their email, it's just not automatically collected. All right. I usually only, like right now with the form, I am collecting those emails so I know who I emailed back, but I don't have to rely on you putting your email in. It's just saving you a question. So that's kind of when I do that. Respondents, after they submit, can they edit that submission? That would be if you wanted to go back and change their answers, or can they see the summary of responses? Now, I only turn on the summary responses if this is like in a poll or opinion, and I want everybody else to see those responses. So you can uncheck it if you want, and you don't leave it checked. It does tell you that it means it's going to be visible to all form respondents if you turn that on. So you can't pick and choose who sees the summary of responses. They can't see the sheet if you want to do, or the actual individual information. It's just the overall summary. So it's not people's individual responses. Go ahead and leave that. All right, so then the next one is presentation. This is what are the respondents going to see as they work? Do they show, you want to show the progress bar, particularly if you have pages, it kind of comes in handy. Shuffle question order. I don't do this too often. It depends on what questions I'm asking. And the biggest reason I don't always shuffle my is because if I put a question in there that's like student name, that student name gets shuffled into another location and it kind of throws the quizzing off. So I don't always reshuffle it, but you know, that's your choice whether you want to do it. And then do you show a link to submit another response? That's up to you. If this is going to be a poll and opinion and you want a student to be able to pass the device onto somebody else and immediately take another poll, you can do that right there. If you don't want that link to show us another response, particularly if you only want to limit one person to one quiz or one response for one student, you want to turn that off because you don't want to give them the option to fill in another one. And last is not least is the quizzes. This is a new feature. I will come back and touch on this at the very end, so stick with me. But that'll be at the end. I want to just get through the quizzing or the forms in and of themselves. All right, so go ahead and cancel. So those were all in the settings. If you click on the gear, you see them there. You can change those at any time. So maybe accidentally you had said you can only take this once and you really want them to take more than one. You can change that if you want to. The color palette up here at the top is the theme. And I added my own image. I'm going to take that off because it's just a color. So you can edit your theme. You can edit a picture. You can do an animated GIF, which was what that was up there before if you want to. Some of these different ones, actually, remember there's one right here, kids. Some of these that are selected here on the themes are actually animated ones. So this is an animated one. You can see real slightly this kid is moving, or these balloons are moving. So it's kind of nice. They kind of just give it a different fun feel if you want to. You can add your own. You have to upload your images. It doesn't allow you to add directly from Drive at this time. The old one actually does. The new one doesn't. So I'm hoping that's something that's going to come later. Cancel. Or you can just choose color, which is what I have done. So you've got your form written. You want to get ready to go ahead and send this on and send it out. You click on send. Do you automatically collect the respondency username? That's up to you. I said I do it because I want to get their email account, but you don't have to. And then you can send this as an email right here. You just type your email to subject, and I believe it pulls from your same Gmail contacts. If you saw from the last one, I actually used that ICs one. It pulls in all my other emails and everything. So it pulls it directly from Gmail as well. Subject, message, and you can actually include the form in the email. I really like this for short and sweet forms. If you just have a 3-question form, you send that email, then they open up their email or Gmail, it has the form directly in there, opposed to them having to open up a separate window to go to it. So again, it's whatever you want to do. I would only do that included form on real short forms because there might be other times you need that bigger window that they can't quite get to. Then you can do a link, which these are really long links. We talked about shortened URLs last time. This is when I would use this. If you are, and you can shorten it, however, you'll notice here, I don't like this. This is still too long for me. If I were writing this on a piece of paper and I wanted somebody to retype it in, there's too much chance for error. So I actually don't like that shortened URL. I take this one and then I use my shortened URLs that I used last time. So if you go to goo.gl, And I didn't copy this, so I'm going to go ahead and copy, Control C, go back over here, and I'm going to paste, and then I shorten it. So if I were at an open house and I wanted parents to go ahead and I want them to submit all their contact information and added in, you know, what was their favorite thing to do in their pastime, I don't know. I would post this link on the board so they could just type that in on their phone. And if you really want to get cool and you want to do QR codes, which is another thing you can look up, I'll sometimes use QR codes as well so they can scan them with their phone. If you're interested in that, feel free to email me later and I'll help you out with it. But that's, you know, I would post that up at the front of my room so, you know, you can tell me how I'm doing today or something like that. All right. So there is a link option. I can insert this link into an email. I can insert this link into a website. I can put the link wherever I want to. I can put it in another Google Doc if I want to put it in a Google Doc. And the last option is embed. Now, if you don't do a lot with a website and coding, you probably won't see this one a whole lot. But what this basically means is if I have a website and I want to embed the form so you actually see the form within that web page, this is the code that I'm going to pull. I can set my dimensions and what I want it to look like. And so it's a window inside of another window. I really haven't used this one. I don't believe I haven't done it yet, but you know, if you want to, you can put it directly on your website from there. So your options for sending this form include email, included in the email if you want it to be, a link, preferably a shortened URL if you're going to handwrite it out, or embedding it into another website or another program. So that gives your options for sharing that form. Right, and I'm going to touch here this 3-1. You can make a copy of your forms and edit and change it. I actually did that earlier. You can move it to the trash. And then this is kind of a handy little feature. You can do a get a pre-filled link, meaning I can click on this, fill the form out how might be the typical way you would fill a form out. I haven't totally come up with my reason for that yet. You guys might have some great ideas. I'm not sure. But you can get a link that you would share then with them that it's like more or less all filled out for them. And they may just have to go in and change a few answers. That's up to you. You can print the forms. I don't like printing these forms. It stretches out on the paper quite a bit, but you can print. It is an option. This is where if I was actually going to print it, I'd probably type it up on a Google Doc and print that opposed to typing it here. But you can. The option is available. And here is another way to add your collaborators, and then script editor and add-ons. I'll come back to add-ons here in a little bit. All right, so you've sent it out. What do your responses look like? This is the feature of the new forms that I really, really do like. So I think it's a little easier to get through the responses. Now this one just has 3. I asked Dr. Duncan to send me one earlier, and I sent himself for either. But I can get my summary right here when I click on responses, and then I just scroll down, and here's a summarization of what everybody put out. Now this is what viewers would see if you had that box checked for can view summary of responses. And we were split 50-50 on favorite color. This is where I was excited on for the break. This was a choose 3 options, and the one most chosen was Jenny. So it kind of gives you some quick overview of what's going on. The old forms only allow you to see a sheet. I'm going to show you that here in a second. The other piece that I really like about this, and this came out just recently with the individual response. So if I just want to look at Kate's response, this was actually my first one. I did this twice. I can go through and I can see what I responded with. And then if I go click up here, I can see the next response and see what they put in. And I can go to my third one and see what they put in. All right, so it kind of gives you a little bit more. I just like the response system here. It's a little easier to follow. The old form, and again, it comes in handy, only does responses in sheets. So I'm going to click on my sheets, and it pulls it up in a Google Sheet just like this. And ignore this line right here. This is for something else I've been doing. But you can actually see the timestamp and the name, and it just goes down the line and gives me the responses. And I could see the questions if I scrolled all the way over and information like that. This is how the old form gives you your responses. To view that summary that you see on the new one, you'll have to go up to Form and Show Summary of Responses, and it looks like this. Okay, so it gives you your option here. So you can see that. Again, I don't really like the old one for this because I kind of just like the slickness of being able to really see the form and how it was filled out. But it's still available to you, and I do use these sheets for other items. Okay, so let me jump back over here. The last thing that we're going to talk about, and I know I'm a little bit over, is the graded quizzes. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And I told you forms was heavy today. On the graded quiz, you create the form just like you did before. The only thing that you have to change up here is in the settings, quizzes, and you check the box to make this a quiz. Then there's some options from that point on. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a disclaimer on this. It will only grade and give points for multiple choice, check boxes, and drop-down questions. It does not give you any points. So if I click on this one, you'll see down here it says answer key. I decided it was going to be worth 1 point. I marked my correct answer. Maybe I want to change that. And I said, I have to put it over here. Don't let me do it. Okay. I have to check into it. Like I said, I'm working on and so you have a little bit different of a response. That's what I need to do. I had to click off of it. I forgot I need to do that. And I can click on multiple and it's being multiple. And then I go back to edit the question. But if I'm into my short answer, as you see here, it doesn't have the option to do the answer key. So I did learn that about the quizzing in the form is it does not include your short answer or your paragraph. It doesn't even include a section for points to like giving it a point. So you're going to really want to limit this to your multiple choice questions, true, false, drop down. It's going to be those kind of responses to quizzes. It does give you the response. So I did take this test, and you can see I kind of like this, and one person took it, and so it shows me that I scored 4 out of 4. You know, what's the average points across the board? What did everybody score? And it tells me what everybody responded to it. I tried to give a short answer, but it didn't. It gave me the response, but it doesn't give me a chance to give it a point. So you want to keep those things in mind. And I'll jump back up here. So the quizzing is kind of a nice feature, but it's a new feature. They literally just released this in the last like month and a half. So it's still very new. Please give it some time. But if you do want those short answers and essays to be graded, I strongly recommend you do some research into Flubaroo, which is what's been used in the past, which is on your sheets. If you take a quiz, you submit that answer, and this is something you can research a little bit more, but if you go into add-ons and you look for Flubaroo, it will do some grading for you. Now, we have some people in the district who have used this, so if you want those names, I can give them to you. Just shoot me an email and I'll give them to you later. I haven't done a whole lot with Flubaroo because most of the stuff I'm doing is opinion-based. It's not actually a response. I'm not looking for right or wrong answers. But it does do some grading, and I believe it has some of that short answer, or at least assigns a point that you go back and review the question, and then you can decide if they get that point or not. So there is some option with Google quizzing, but Flubaroo is still going to beat it out on some of those short answer and essays. All right, keep that in mind. All right, so I know we went over today. Thank you for bearing with me. I do appreciate you for staying with us a little bit longer. Sorry for the overage, but be sure you take the follow-up survey again, even if you don't want the points. I still appreciate the feedback. There's a lot of information today, so rewatch these videos as many times as you want. If they get watched over and over and over again, I think that's great because you might catch something the second time you didn't see the first time. Contact me at any time if you have any questions. The next session will be on Tuesday, July 26th at 8 o'clock. We're going to talk about Gmail and groups, and I'm actually going to jump into a few other little things about Gmail. We're going to talk about the contacts information, and that'll be a great time if you have any questions about the functioning of Gmail, because that shouldn't be a very heavy session. Feel free to contact me on that one later. All right, so we're going to be going off here in just a little bit. Don't forget about doing that quiz. Don't forget this is case sensitive, so you need a capital M and a capital K. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. We'll talk to you guys later. See you next Tuesday.